Welcome to Mother Mary's Apothecary. My name is Valerie. I have a very special guest today for the podcast. His name is Dominic Fagan. He is in the Amazon jungle of Peru, and I'm about to admit him here into the chat room. Hopefully he can hear us. He can see us. Dominic, are we able to connect? I think his audio is coming on. So Dominic has been living in a remote location, so I want to give him a chance to see if this technology is going to work so that we can hear about his story, his spiritual quest. I cannot wait. I cannot think of a better first guest for Mother Mary's Apothecary. Dominic, can you hear me? I think we might be making some progress.
Yeah, I can hear you.
Yay! Hi, Dominic. How are you doing? Hey, there you are. I wasn't sure this is going to happen, but if it's meant to be, it will, right?
Yeah,
Get yourself comfortable. Get yourself situated. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Is the video okay?
You're good. You're good. You're
Okay.
coming in and out a bit, but you know what? Considering where you are, and that you've been able to make time for this today, I am so appreciative, as are all the viewers on Mother Mary's Apothecary. You're our very first guest, and I can't think of a better guest to have. So I mentioned a little bit as I started recording how I heard of your story, but obviously I'm gonna let you fill us in. Your Aunt Susan is a very dear friend of mine that I've known for many years. And in passing, she has mentioned little snippets of your story and your adventure. And as I heard of it, I'm going to be completely honest. I thought this guy's the next Terrence McKenna. I was like, what's he doing? Where has he been? Can I talk to him? She said, well, we can try. And I said, all right, I'll go with that. So this show is all about spirituality, plant-based medicine, and anything else and in between that we can think of. We can, get as far out as you wish. But can you tell me a little bit about you and, everyone who's going to tune in?
So I'm in Peru right now. I've been living in the Amazon jungle in Peru for the past 3 years. I'm on a journey to heal myself. I've been on a spiritual journey and a journey to heal myself of various issues and trauma and depression that I've had for the past 6 years or so. I've been on a healing journey for the past, say, 7 years. And it started it started with a ceremony with a plant called Iboga. And I did a 3-day ceremony with this plant called Iboga, which comes from Africa, comes from the jungle in Africa. At the time, I needed to heal myself of some extreme drug addiction. So I went and did this ceremony to free myself of the addiction. And it triggered a profound spiritual awakening in me. It was the most intense, difficult experience in my life.
Okay.
The ceremony lasted for 3 days, and for 3 days I didn't sleep. I went into a state of psychosis. And at the end of this ceremony, it triggered a massive spiritual awakening. I got flooded with the most intense love and compassion that I'd ever experienced in my life. It set me, this is the beginning of an intense spiritual journey that I've been on for the past 7 years. I had a sense this spiritual awakening, and a lot of that awakening, a lot of I would awaken my perception. I was able to perceive things and see things that would have been incapable. I could sense in the future that something really dark and difficult was going to come at some point in the future, and I knew that it was going to come a year after I'd done this, a year after this Ayahuasca ceremony, and after a year of being in this state, I was in a state of where I'd be going between a state of extreme love and compassion and a state of the most intense pain and agony that I'd ever felt in my life. And I was in this, it was like months where I was going in between a state of intense love and compassion and a tense of extreme pain and agony. And I noticed that my emotions were starting to get get more numb. I was overwhelmed by everything that had happened. I was completely unprepared for it. I didn't know how to deal with such an intensity of emotions. I started to go numb over the course of the year. This started, little by little, started to send me into despair, because I didn't want to ever go back there where I was before all this happened. It's like it was a one-way path and there's no way to go back. So
no way to go back. Is that what you said?
Yeah.
Dominic, can I,
because you had back.
There was a little bit of issue with the video when you were describing your first experience. I think you said it was in Africa, right? In Africa?
No, it was in Europe. It was where that plant.
Oh, it was in Europe.
West Africa.
Okay, so this.
Yeah, it was in the Netherlands, in Europe.
In the Netherlands. Okay, so that was the part I wanted to clarify. So you had this spiritual awakening while you were in the Netherlands, and this was 7 years ago.
It started in the Netherlands after this 3-day ceremony. It started in the Netherlands, but I went into a state of what I can only describe as spiritual bliss. I was in a state where I was no longer just male. I was both male. I became both male and female. And for the first time in my life, I'd become whole. I felt whole. And I felt like I had returned home. I felt like I felt like, it was like a reunion with the second half of myself. I felt like I had united with a spirit that was female, and I'd reunited with this spirit, and I became both male and female. And in this state, I was completely whole and complete. I had everything I could ever want, everything I could ever need. And this was the feeling that came with this was the most intense love that I'd ever.
The most intense love you had ever felt. Because I heard you say the word compassion several times, and hopefully we can continue to talk about compassion. Oh, did we lose you, Dominic? There you are again. So
I got cut off there for a second.
That's okay. This is all worth it just to have a few minutes of your time today. So, Dominic, would it be okay if we kind of even backed up further than that? So you have this massive spiritual awakening 7 years ago in the Netherlands using a psychedelic drug, which you mentioned was from West Africa, right? And it enabled you to feel this union with all that is. But what previous to that, like, what would you say was from your childhood's perspective or your upbringing? Do you think that this was a path that you've been on from the very get-go, or, can you share a little bit about that?
Yeah, for sure, I feel like aspects of this path I was on since the day I was born, and all
The day
that.
you were born.
Yeah, aspects of this. I've been on this path since for a long time. I've always gravitated towards psychedelics and shamanic healing. It just seems to be, it's something that resonates with me. It's something that deeply resonates with me. So this path is kind of the path that I naturally gravitate towards.
Okay. So
Uh,
just for the viewers know, when you say you always felt drawn towards this path, this shamanic path, this spiritual quest, the seeker, you were born and raised in Ireland, is that right?
Yeah.
Okay. So would you say, because it's interesting how, regardless of our immediate kind of environment or circumstance, when we're on the path, on the quest, we arrive to the destination of where we're supposed to be. So you being raised in Ireland, was there anything to suggest that, you had heard or seen or were aware of any of these kinds of topics or teachings beforehand, as a boy, as a child? Like,
No, not that I can remember.
not that you can remember.
No, I just remember I always had a fascination with Brazil and the Amazon jungle, but I don't remember ever having like any prior information or any. I didn't really have many experiences other than with psychedelic plant medicines. I didn't really have any other experiences which would have led me to this path. It seems like it's something that's innate, like something that's deep within me, and it's just something I naturally resonate with, it's something born with.
Okay. So once you had this spiritual awakening, would you say that you experienced a form of enlightenment? Would that be correct in the way that you describe it as a student of yoga for many, many years? That union with all that is that you describe, that union of masculine, feminine, of compassion, of expansion. Would you say that was a moment of enlightenment for you? Is that part of the experience?
I don't know. I don't know if I'd be able to call it enlightenment, but it's definitely some kind of illumination and some kind of unity, some kind of like unification with a deeper part of. So for absolute sure, an awakening of some kind.
An awakening of some kind. Okay. So after the experience in the Netherlands and that you had this illumination, what came after that? I mean, once someone's experienced that kind of knowingness, where do you go from there? Like how did that progress?
So I was in this state for about a week, and I was in a state of complete spiritual bliss, and I noticed that I wasn't thinking about it. I wasn't questioning it at the time. I was in a state of complete bliss. So I was just flowing with this for about a week, and then I noticed at one point I started to think about it and I started to question it, and at that moment it came the most extreme crash that I ever experienced in my life. I went from a state of immense love and compassion and complete acceptance and oneness with everything to a state of the most intense agony and pain that I'd ever experienced in my life. So that sent me into sent me into complete despair. I didn't know how to deal with this, like with this extent of pain and agony. And at the time, I'd met this girl in the Ayahuasca ceremony. So I started to talk to her. She'd been connected to this. I dreamt about her 2 weeks before this ceremony. I'd seen her in my dreams and visions. So I started to talk to her through email and through messages, and that really helped. And I started to go back into I started to come out of the state of extreme pain and misery and go into a state of intense love and compassion again. And I'd be in this place I'd be oscillating between extreme pain and misery, extreme love and compassion. So I was in this place for months after this. I've become really creative during this time period. A lot of inspiration had come to me, so I started to work on a project that I'd started before this ceremony. A project built on a website which interprets your DNA, interprets your genome. So I was working on this project during this time period, and it turned out to be really good, because this is where I was able to make some money that I needed to go to travel in South America, to stay in South America for the next 3 years.
So when did you get to South America, Dominic? Was that 3 years ago?
About a year after this Ayahuasca ceremony, I decided to drink ayahuasca.
Okay, and we're going to talk a lot about that. Sure. Had you heard of ayahuasca then, since you started this quest, and obviously you had this incredible experience, an ecstatic state? Were you familiar with ayahuasca at the time?
Yeah, no, I drank ayahuasca twice in the past with the Santo Daime Church.
Okay, so you had already done it prior to actually physically going to the Amazon.
I drank ayahuasca before twice.
And where were you when you drank ayahuasca twice before that?
This was with a group called the Santo Daime Church.
And where is this church?
They're all over the world. They originated in Brazil. Okay. They come from Brazil originally, a place called Rio Branco in Brazil. But they're all nowadays they've spread all over the world.
Okay.
A church which it was started by a rubber tapper who went to the jungle by a person called Raimondo Irineo. He went to the jungle. He was working in the jungle, and he came in contact with some of the indigenous tribes there, and he drank ayahuasca with them, and he had a vision where the Virgin Mary came to him and gave him instructions to start a new religion, which was going to combine Christianity with Amazonian shamanism. And this is how Santo Daime got started.
So is this the ceremony? So this was one of the stories that I heard through your Aunt Susan, was this intense experience that you had specifically with this church, and the ceremonial ayahuasca, was it some kind of choir or singing? Is that part of the whole ceremony?
Yeah, they sing. Everyone dresses in white, and for the duration of the ceremony, everyone sings together and dances together. They sing these hymns in Portuguese. They sing these songs which they come true. These songs have been developed through ayahuasca. They come true the people while they're on ayahuasca. They get inspiration, but they hear the songs, and then they record them, and these songs, these hymns become part of the official ceremony.
Okay. Well, that's a great segue for my question. Do you feel that these type of experiences, spiritual experiences, are possible through all type of psychedelics, or is it really specific to a plant-based medicine? How do you personally feel about that?
I feel like these kinds of experiences can come through all psychedelic medicine.
Can come through all psychedelics.
Isn't necessarily the plant-based medicines. It can happen with LSD, with 5-MeO DMT. It doesn't matter if it comes from a natural source or it's synthetic. 5-MeO DMT will trigger a massive, a really intense spiritual experience. Could potentially dissolve your ego, and it doesn't matter if it comes from a plant or it comes from a lab. That's just my perspective on it.
Okay, so that's basically dissolving the ego ultimately is what allows you to transcend into this state of union. And so regardless if it's from a synthetic or a plant-based, it's the capacity to transcend the boundaries and limitations of our reality, that they are allowing you to, or allowing us to know what we typically don't experience in the 3D reality, right? Is the ability to go beyond this realm. Do you think we can experience things like that in meditation and prayer, intense meditation and prayer?
Yeah, for absolute sure. Well, my view of it, my perspective of it is that unity consciousness is our natural state of consciousness. Is that it's what we naturally are, is we're beyond separation. Our true nature is we're one with everything, what all that is. And this experience we have in a 3D world, I get the sense that we're one consciousness getting to know itself through an experience, through an illusion of separation. And that's what this three-dimensional world is. So when so naturally, there's a lot of different ways in which the ego might temporarily collapse or might temporarily be obscured, and we experience unity consciousness.
So where are you at knowing this and having experienced this? Because I think it's very, from an intellectual perspective, it's one thing, but to actually know it, that inner knowing, that inner experience that you have, how does it change the trajectory of your life? And so now that you have this compassion, for example, what do you find your purpose to be, whether it's on a daily basis or even just what you see yourself doing in the future?
I've been on a bit, I feel like for the past few years now, I've been on a journey to heal myself of various traumas that have been unearthed after this Ayahuasca ceremony. So that's been my focus for the past few years, and that's become a main part of my purpose. And through this I've got something to share, and I'm able to share this with people. The more I'm able to heal myself, and the more I walk this path, the more I'm able to share this with others, the more I'm able to help people out. For me, the purpose for existence is to do good and to help others.
Is to do good and to help others. That sounds very good. So let me ask you this. how do you feel? Because the last 10, 15 years or so, there has been a strong interest from Westerners seeking heightened experiences. Okay, maybe not necessarily on a path towards enlightenment, but just from thrill seeking to the beyond. What is your feeling on Westerners going to places like the Amazon to experience ayahuasca? Do you think that there's a certain preparation that is needed or a certain state of mind to really understand?
I think it depends completely on the person. We're all different and we're all coming from a different place. So it depends entirely on the person. Some people who come to South America to drink ayahuasca, they're going to be naturally prepared because their specific life journey has prepared them for this kind of thing. Whereas others, it's going to be completely alien and something that they're not very prepared for. But in my experience with ayahuasca, it's got an intelligence to it, and it knows where you're at, and it knows what you need when you need it. So in my experience at least, it knows, it gives me what I need when I need it. It doesn't overwhelm me. It doesn't unless I ask for it, unless I go in with a really strong intention that I want to be, that I ask for something that I'm not ready for. It tends to give me what I need when I need it. It doesn't give me anything more than I'm able to handle.
That divine intelligence within the medicine itself.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's your personal feeling on and perspective on it. Do you consider yourself on the path to being a shaman? Are you already a shaman in many respects? How do you feel about that?
I don't know. I'm just following my intuition. I'm following my heart. I want to be able to help people in any way that I possibly can. And if this is one way that I can help others, then beyond any doubt, I'll keep following this path and I'll let whatever's going to unfold, let it unfold within me.
Okay, so does that mean are you currently working living with the indigenous people? Tell us first of all, where specifically, I should have asked you this first, where specifically are you right now and where do you spend most of your time?
Right now I'm in Lima. I'm on my way back from, I've been traveling, doing a bit of traveling. I was recently in Brazil, in the jungle in Brazil, where I visited some of the tribes in Brazil. And I'm on my way back, so I'm just passing through. I'm in Lima right now. I'm on my way. I'll be going back to Pucallpa. Pucallpa is where I live most of the time. Where I've been living for the past 2.5 years is it's a place called Pucallpa.
Pucallpa. And does that give it? And what kind of is that? Quite remote, or is that where you spend most of your time exploring the jungle, or what would a typical day there be like, or is there such a thing as a typical day there?
Well, I'd say there isn't really such thing as a typical day there, but where I've been living for the past 2.5 years, I've been living in a village called San Francisco, where it's a Shipibo community. So I've been living in an indigenous village about an hour north of Pucallpa. It's connected to Pucallpa is a city, and this village is connected to the city by car, so it's not too remote.
Okay.
But it's the biggest Shipibo community in the country, and it's a shamanic village. There's a lot of shamans and a lot of curanderos and a lot of people who work with the plants and the medicines there.
Curandero would be what, healers? Would that be defined as a healer?
Curandero is a healer, yeah. someone who works with the plants and the medicine, and in a way works primarily to heal people.
Mhm.
And the jungle there's not just healers, there's also people who work with ayahuasca for negative reasons, people who work with the darkness and the bad spirits too, people who, the curanderos are the ones who work with the light, ones who work with ayahuasca and medicines to heal. Whereas there's others who people who work with ayahuasca and plant medicines for various different reasons, not always just to heal.
Who do not have good intentions. Is that something that you would say people should be very aware of?
Yeah, for absolute sure. It's something to be careful about when you come to South America, when you come to the jungle to work with ayahuasca and plant medicine. You can't. You need to be careful who you drink ayahuasca with, because not everyone. A lot of people in the jungle drink ayahuasca, and a lot of people call themselves shamans, but not everyone. I wouldn't trust. Not everyone can be as trustworthy, and not everyone is gonna help you in the ceremonies.
Let me ask you this. Do you think that that's because, now, do you think that's always been the case, that we, obviously judgment and discernment, particularly on a spiritual quest, or do you think that a lot of that could be the result of the monetization, the capitalization of the tourism that has come out of the ayahuasca phenomenon, the spiritual seeking phenomenon of travelers wanting to have that experience?
I think that blue holes have always been around. There's always been the good shamans and the bad shamans. There's always been shamans that work with the darkness.
So it's like teachers, right? It's like people, good and bad. There's everything.
Yeah. It's the same.
Dark and light.
It's a universal principle that you see this in every walk of life, in every aspect of life. There's the light and there's the darkness, and they're both like an integral aspect of life.
How do you
think that the money has definitely corrupted a lot of aspects of these indigenous communities? They don't really have a frame. They don't have a framework in order to. They don't really have like a long history of experience in dealing with money, and they're not really well equipped or prepared to deal with money. You see that now that they're forced to live in a modern society, you see that money is deteriorating a lot of aspects of their society and their culture and their values.
Mm-hmm.
And it's the same. This applies to the world of ayahuasca. The people who work with ayahuasca too. There's a lot of these communities, people, they're really poor, and they have almost no way to prosper. The ayahuasca brings them a way that they can not only survive, but they can actually prosper. But ayahuasca, yeah.
Is that something that you see yourself now, as a guide or even as an ambassador for folks visiting? Is that something that you are working on right now? Like, do you see yourself being part of the process for people interested, that you would be someone that they could that they could trust you and experience these kind of spiritual teachings under your guidance, or someone who is living there with the tribes? Is that kind of what you're trying to set up, or are you just supporting what already exists in the community that you're living in?
For, I say, for absolute sure, I can help people. I can help people who want to, people who are thinking about coming to the jungle to drink ayahuasca and to heal themselves and do dietas. I can definitely help people in that area. I can help guide people, help people find the right place and
Find the right
connect with
place.
the right people.
And do you have things like, is there a way to get in touch with you? Like, are you working, you mentioned a website earlier. Is that something that you're planning on doing as you establish yourself more and more in this community of healing and indigenous community? Do you see yourself really setting up roots there and having a platform where people can actually come and find you in that manner?
Yeah, that's a natural part of, it's a natural part of what, of where I'm heading, like the direction that I'm going.
The direction that you're going in.
The past 2.5 years, when I first got to this, when I first got to Pucallpan, I first started my healing journey with the Shipibos. I started to work with this family. I started to help a family there to build a website and to help them to bring people from other parts of the world to their center. So I've been working with this family for the past 2.5 years. So I've been working in this area. But what I'm gravitating towards is I recently been on a journey in Brazil. So I got to meet the tribes in Brazil, and I got to know some, I got to know, yeah, I got to experience how they work with the medicine and the ways in which they work with the plants and the ayahuasca and their communities there. So it opened my eyes to a lot. It opened my eyes to a lot of things, a lot of the differences in the way that they work. I got a lot of much deeper understanding of the medicine and the plants. So I want to continue this journey and to get to know different tribes around the world, around the Amazon jungle and around South America, and get to
So
know
really,
how they
Dominic,
work with the way.
you are a true, seeker in the sense that you do plan on traveling as extensively to continue to immerse yourself in these teachings. And it sounds like what you just said, that there's some different perspectives from the Brazilian tribes versus where you are in Peru.
Yeah, they work with the medicine slightly differently.
In which way?
Well, for example, they work with them. They're famous for making this medicine called rapé, which is it's a medicine they make with tobacco. They grind tobacco into a powder, and they mix it with ash from a sacred tree. And this is one of their primary medicines, their primary sacraments. They use this for everything. They use it for spiritual protection. They use it for healing. They use it to transmit their energy in the ceremonies. They use it for all kinds of things. This is something that the Shipibos, they don't work with this particular medicine. The Shipibos, they work with tobacco, with mapacho. They call it mapacho. They work with tobacco in a different way.
Okay.
They smoke the mapacho and they use it. They call it sopla. They'll in the ceremonies they'll blow tobacco smoke on you during the ceremonies. And this is a way they transmit their energy, and they use this to spiritually cleanse you and to spiritually protect you. But what's interesting is that the Brazilian tribes, they don't smoke mapacho. They don't smoke tobacco. They never smoke tobacco. They only use this. They use rapé, which is it's a powder that you blow into your nose. there'll be a someone who will they blow the powder into your nose through a tube. And it's really powerful medicine, man. It's really
And it's
powerful.
probably and it sounds very uncomfortable too. There's that component of discomfort, right?
Yeah, it's pain. Initially it's painful. It hits you with. Initially, it's painful. It's unpleasant and uncomfortable.
And it it reminds me of what you said really earlier on in the conversation about the discomfort or the suffering or the trauma that seems to be part of the spiritual quest, right? It's like that suffering is part of the process almost. Whether it's our own personal traumas or the discomfort that we have to put ourselves into in order to go beyond that known portion of us, right? And so I wanted to ask you about channeling, because what I find fascinating about the ayahuasca brew, right? Because it's a brew, and please, correct me or jump in, is how, through the millennia, the natives learned to mix this mixology of plants that enables one to go on this spiritual journey. Obviously it's not by accident. The fact that they've mixed these plants, right? It just seems so fascinating to me, because without the combination, you don't have the full experience. Are there stories, or is there some kind of mythology involved with the ayahuasca brew itself, how it came to be known to the indigenous people?
Yeah, it's a mystery how that they managed to find these two particular
It's a mystery, right? It was like channeled from above.
Out of the millions of plants in the jungle that they managed to discover, that mix these two particular plants together and they become active. I've heard different myths and stories about it. One myth is that the original ayahuasca, the person who discovered ayahuasca, was a tobacco shaman. He was a tabacero in the jungle. There's shamans who they work specifically with tobacco, and they use it in a shamanic way. Through tobacco, they have visions. They can unlock visionary. They go into visionary places with the help of tobacco. And supposedly, in this myth, the original ayahuasca shaman, he was told how to prepare ayahuasca by the spirit of tobacco.
Okay, by the spirit of tobacco. Interesting. I had not heard that before. Now, when you refer, is Aya, as often referred, is that the feeling of a divine feminine presence when you experience her? I know you said there was this merging of all that is, but seems like it's often described as a maternal energy. Would you say that's accurate?
In my personal experience, I don't experience ayahuasca as any gender.
No gender.
Doesn't feel male, doesn't feel female.
Okay.
For me, it feels like something beyond gender. This is my experience with all plants and all entheogens. But other people feel they experience ayahuasca as a female, as a feminine spirit. So I suppose it depends. It's different for everyone.
That could be their own interpretation.
Yeah.
Now, do you feel that, well, prior to your psychedelic experience or your awakening, did you have prior moments of what I'll call knowing? Like, would you say that you've had whether it's psychic abilities, visions, do you channel any kind of, was there anything prior to that other than just the trauma, which you mentioned, that kind of guided you as well onto that path? Or do you feel that maybe now that you've had that awakening, you are a more open channel for those kind of higher transmissions, as I like to call them?
Yeah, for absolute sure. There was things that led, experiences that led up to this. There was things, experiences that led up to this, and that happened before I experienced this heart opening and spiritual awakening. Two weeks before I had this Ayahuasca ceremony, I had some experiences where I smoked cannabis, and I've been oftentimes for years and years, when I smoked cannabis, I'd be going into a place of extreme terror. I go into a place of a really difficult to manage place, and I'd suffer.
You said terror, Dominic? When you would smoke cannabis, you went into a place of terror?
Yeah, place of
interesting. Okay.
And I started to go into this place like I often did, but then something flipped and something shifted. And instead of feeling immense terror, instead of going into a place of terror, I started to feel a sense of love, a sense of compassion. I got stronger and stronger and more intense and more intense. And it just kept intensifying to the point that I was like crying tears of joy and tears of love. I was crying tears of joy for hours. I've never experienced anything like this before. I didn't even know what to call it at the time. I didn't even know that the word for this is love. Well, I knew the feeling. There was something that I was familiar with. I know that exists, something that exists within me. And this happened three times in this time period. This was about 2 weeks before I went and did this Ayahuasca ceremony. In this time period, I started to experience, I started to have dreams, like premonitions which let me know, premonitions which kind of pointed, showed me things before they had happened.
Mm-hmm. Or even being, I think you mentioned being connected to people that you were going to meet. I think you mentioned connecting with a person or a woman that, you were going to meet. So like these kind of channels starting to open for you. How do you feel today, now that you have gone, so to speak, beyond the veil? Do you feel like you're more open to these kind of experiences, more so than even before?
I don't know I don't think I'm necessarily more open. I think it's just on a mental level, that's for absolute sure I'm more open. My mind has been opened, and my perspective on reality has been permanently changed. I'm in a more open place. But I'm not necessarily, I don't feel like these psychic experiences, I'm not any more open to them now than as I was before.
Okay. And so I want to ask you about, because you've mentioned compassion so many times, and I feel that part of my spiritual journey, my spiritual path, what has led me to, for example, MotherMary's Apothecary, is just years of increasing compassion. And it's not something that I've necessarily experienced through a psychedelic, though I've certainly had, my share of experiences with some. I have not done ayahuasca because I feel that there's a certain level of preparation that I personally feel that I'm not there yet. But I was just, I forgot what I was going to say, but maybe I have done too many psychedelics. No, I'm just kidding. the compassion, that's what I wanted to get back to. From a compassion perspective, like how does that translate in everyday life? Because for me, the way compassion translated, once I felt like I got it, it was like, I got it. The light went on. It's, you know, this connection, it was to be mainly for me an advocate for those without a voice. And of course that extends to my fellow humans, but an extreme sense of compassion for all other earthlings on this planet. And I'm always curious to see, you know, that perspective as people go through their own journey. Like, how does that compassion translate for you, for example? Like for me in my personal life, I want to try and cause the least harm possible that I can. And so, you know, my personal choice has been not to take another life, you know, whether it's furry, scaly, looks like me, doesn't look like me. So that's been my personal journey on the compassionate side. How does it translate for you, or what kind of values and kind of what do you do on a daily basis in a practical sense, I think?
Yeah, well, the way what led up to this massive heart awakening, heart opening was when during the Ayahuasca ceremony for 3 days I was in a journey in which I was experiencing what looked like, it appeared like the universe is a matrix. And at the time, we completely believed that all humanity is trapped in a matrix, and this matrix is created by entities from beyond these 3 dimensions, from beyond the third dimension, which they create this matrix in order to enslave consciousness, enslave humanity, in order to harvest its suffering. And this one, it triggered an immense amount of compassion within me, because there's no way to go through this particular experience and not feel an immense amount of compassion for all humanity. So naturally this compassion unfolds. It unfolds in a way in which I do what I can to make my existence, so that my existence not only doesn't contribute to the suffering of others, but in a way that I can help alleviate the suffering of humanity, and I can help to liberate others, and help others in any way that I can.
So by being of service, that's how that compassion comes through for you, is the being of service to others, to humanity. Now, of course, you've opened Pandora's box. When we start to talk about the matrix, we can go really deep down the rabbit hole, which I'm very excited and happy to do. Does the perspective change every time you decide to take another trip or spiritual journey? Or is it just each time it just confirms what you already know, right?
I think, well, what experiences, I start to see things from different angles. As time goes by, I start to see the same truth, but from a different angle. I see it from a different perspective. I can see that during this time period where I was constantly struggling with visions and psychedelic trips involving the matrix, this matrix which enslaves humanity and feeds on the suffering of humanity. I started to see things from different perspectives. I started to see that, yeah, this is one aspect of existence, and it's real, and this is an aspect of existence, and this is what humanity is up against. But then at the same time, there's also an intelligence. There's an intelligence and a consciousness within everything, and everything that exists in this reality, and everything that exists in this universe under the guidance of this intelligence, and everything what we experience. Although one person who might have certain psychic abilities might experience that the source of their suffering and the cause of their suffering is this matrix and extraterrestrials or entities and bad spirits and this kind of thing, which is kind of the shamanic perspective. Well, this is the way a lot of the shamans in the Amazon jungle, the Shipibo shamans who I've been working with, they'll see these when they help you, when they help to heal you, they'll explain it like what they've done is they've removed negative energies from you. They've helped you to transform. Yeah, they've pulled these negative dark energies out of you. They've removed bad spirits from. They've removed bad spirits from your energy field. They've helped to remove bad spirits from you. That's kind of the shamanic view. Whereas another person, a psychologist, might view the same thing. Let's say a psychotherapist, they'll help you to heal a trauma. But the way they view it is that you didn't remove any negative energies or any bad spirits. What happened was that you learned to embrace rejected part of yourself. You learn to embrace this trauma and bring it back within to reunify this part of your psyche which is split off. But in reality, these two perspectives are just two ways of looking at the same thing, because when you heal a trauma within yourself, when you heal one of these fragmented parts of your psyche, what you're actually doing what the shamans would, they might see that as you retrieve the part, like you retrieve the soul fragment, what they call soul retrieval. Or they might see it as you removed some negative energies and negative spirits, because when you see things through this lens, when you see things through this perspective, you see that the negative energies, the negative bad spirits, they attach to the traumas, they attach to any parts of ourselves which we heavily reject, and any parts of ourselves which are traumas which we haven't yet been able to heal, haven't yet been able to reintegrate. These are like areas of our psyche in which the light doesn't shine, the light of our consciousness doesn't shine in these areas. So it creates like an area of darkness within our psyche that lets these negative entities enter. But really, the way I see it is that good, two perspectives to see the same thing, the same truth. And I really, it's all ourselves. That's the spiritual part, and the part to heal ourselves, really a part of reunification with ourselves.
Reunification with ourselves. So let me ask you this, because I think inevitably the segue into what's going on with the world today, and I just very curious to hear your perspective with things like obviously COVID and everything we're seeing in the world today, and this idea of disease, right? And if we take that idea from a very let's say shamanic perspective, that all disease is ultimately some kind of fragmentation or something that we're allowing to permeate us, right? Something like you mentioned this idea of a spirit or, taking over, even though it may sound very, I want to say esoteric or surreal for many people. Is there, though, this same idea when it comes to the dis-ease that the whole world is in right now, right? Because it's a symptom of a much larger, a much larger global karma that we're in, right? Like as a species, not our individual karma, but even as a global karma that we've accumulated what is the natives' perspective of the global pandemic, for example? Like, how do they feel about that?
I can only speak for some of the natives, who I've talked to about this, who shared their perspectives on the actual cause of the coronavirus epidemic. They perceive it as got an energetic cause, that it's all it's that at the root of it is it's energy, and it's an energetic cause, which is similar to what they work with in the ayahuasca ceremonies. They work with the energies. They perceive the coronavirus epidemic as an energy, like a negative energy.
Correct.
Which is kind of similar to what they work with in the ayahuasca ceremony. When someone's got an illness, they'll perceive an energy, that this illness, connected to this illness, or at the root of this illness, there's an energy field, an energy frequency, and they work to remove this energy frequency, or to transform this energy frequency.
So what is your suggestion? I mean, is the solution to just then keep our own energy and vibration as high as possible, so that, you know, we can stay protected, so to speak, from a shamanic perspective, right?
Well, I get the sense that the key is to embrace your own shadow. The key is to acknowledge your own shadow self, and to embrace that, and to try heal and transform your own shadow. Because through healing, through transforming our own shadow, we illuminate ourselves. This naturally brings us to a place of wholeness. I get the sense that all illnesses are a manifestation of attachment within ourselves to ideas and beliefs.
Mm-hmm.
There are manifestations of identification with an illusion in which we perceive ourselves to be separate from all people and all things.
So do you think the solution then is that, you know, the whole world needs to just take ayahuasca? Right? If the world is in a state of dis-ease, where do we go when we are in a situation like we're in? Do we just heal ourselves, as mentioned? As do we resist? Do we because I don't know what it's like where you're living currently, if there's been many restrictions. I think I lost you. Lost your camera, Dominic.
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, no worries. Have there been many restrictions and whatnot? Have you experienced a lot of that? What's it been like for you since 2020, living in Peru or where you've been? I don't know if you heard that.
Most of the time, most of the coronavirus pandemic, I've been in this Shipibo village. I've been in this indigenous village.
Okay.
And things are really relaxed there. It didn't really, the coronavirus, the whole pandemic didn't really affect this. There were some people in the village caught COVID, but the whole restrictions and the lockdown didn't really affect this village too much.
Now, is that also because there are so many, I believe that all that we need from a pharmaceutical perspective is in the natural world, is in the natural environment, and is it because they have access to so many medicinal plants as well. Like, for example, if one were to become infected, is their repertoire of plant medicine something that we should be looking to as a natural alternative? I mean, I'm sure that there must be discussions like that, right? Or is it just too much of a fight against big pharma and things like that?
Yeah, for absolute sure. There's some communities who don't have access to the hospitals, and some communities they're so remote that they don't have access to pharmaceuticals and hospitals. These communities have had to deal with the coronavirus through their traditional methods. They use plant medicine, and these communities they managed to overcome. They overcame the coronavirus a lot better than the communities who were using it.
Right, and that's where my interest lies. Is anybody studying this? You know, because clearly, I firmly believe that these tribes are much more knowledgeable about wellness, true wellness and healing, because it's been extremely difficult here, living here in North America. Far less though than what we've been seeing in Europe. I'm sure, I don't know how connected you stay on a daily, weekly basis. I'm sure though you're quite familiar with all of the various lockdowns and things like that. But it's been very interesting to hold and I speak from a personal perspective, to hold one's personal decisions and not succumb to the pressure, the monumental pressure around us. And I speak from a healing perspective of believing in sovereignty in body and mind, and the choice in making a decision for ourselves, as to what we put into our bodies. And I think that's appropriate when it comes to psychedelics and everything else, right, that we choose to take in or not. So specifically when it comes to, vaccinations, et cetera, it's been a difficult time, and I think it will continue to be. Do you have any pearls of wisdom or any personal perspectives on that? Has there been a strong agenda in the cities? I know you said you were coming from Lima, to have people vaccinated and whatnot where you are?
Yeah, there's been in the cities in Peru. They're right now they're trying to push the vaccination on everyone. They're trying to make it mandatory to vaccinate, and not everybody wants to vaccinate. One of them, they've been using plants throughout, using various plants in order to treat the coronavirus. And one of the plants is called matico. And this plant that's got a really high success rate. Really
Dominic, will you say the name of the plant again? Say the name of that plant.
It's called matico.
You'll have to text that to me, right, so I can see the spelling. And this is a specific plant that the indigenous people have been using to treat the infection, the COVID-19 infection.
Not only the indigenous people all over Peru.
Okay.
This plant that comes from the Andes, it comes from the mountains.
From
all over Peru have been using this plant in order to deal with the coronavirus symptoms. It helps to heal your lungs. The matico, and opens up your airways, so it helps to remedy any respiratory issues.
Anything respiratory.
Yeah.
Wow, that's great to know. I'm trying to think. I mean, it really is a very interesting time. has the pilgrimage of Westerners to South America clearly been affected and diminished with everything that's been going on? Or do you think that now that people are able to travel, that they will come, you know, maybe even in larger amounts to seek spiritual healing after everything that's been going on for the last year and a half?
Yeah, for sure. It's been massively affected by the coronavirus. The amount of people that come to South America, that come to the jungle in order to drink ayahuasca and to heal themselves, the amount of people has dropped massively. For a long time, people weren't allowed to fly into Peru, so there weren't many people coming. During that time period, the only people coming to Peru were people really determined. People who were determined enough to fly to Mexico and fly to Colombia, then cross the Colombian border overland illegally and things like this.
Like really on. So what do you think about those folks who are on such a spiritual mission that ayahuasca is, you know, that there's such a deep calling that they're willing to, you know, do whatever it takes to experience that? Do you think that's because they're more drawn to it? They're on a deeper spiritual path? Or is it just, you know, some of us are more motivated than others? What do you think it is for these people who have really gone to extremes to experience plant medicine despite everything happening?
I think it's people who have a lot of faith in ayahuasca and have a lot of faith in the plants. People who their life situation or their life path has brought them in, that they don't feel like they don't really want to do this. They really need to do this path. This is what you need to do. And but nothing can really stop you when you're in this place where you need to hear yourself, and you feel the only way to hear yourself is with the plants, with the help of the plants, or with ayahuasca. And so you have no choice. This is the way. You're naturally going to go to extreme lengths in order to find ayahuasca, in order to get to the jungle, to connect with the indigenous people there, and to work with the plants and the ayahuasca. You won't naturally, nothing to really sway you.
And that, I mean, isn't that true for all of us, that when we want to truly heal, that, you know, where there's a will, there's a way, right? That we will be led inevitably to what we need to experience if we truly sincerely desire it, right? That path that you were on, you know. And I was thinking this interview, this chat came about so serendipitously. And, you know, I was thinking of the weekend, Thanksgiving, and, you know, what all that entails. And then, of course, celebrating the Native Americans, and now talking about vaccines and, you know, the whole history behind it. It's almost like, I don't know, I feel like we've come into this big circle, like everything is a cycle, you know, in time. And it's just a very unique perspective to be living with the indigenous people on a weekend like today, which has, you know, so much significance for the indigenous people. So it's really, really great to hear your perspective and your teachings. Do you think that you will be able to maybe tune in on a more regular basis and kind of be like a correspondent for us of all that is wonderful and happening in the Amazon and on your adventures, if we check in with you every so often?
Yeah, for sure. I'd love to do that.
You would love to do that? That's great. I would love to talk to you again, because your perspective is
also,
just healing.
Yeah. I'll begin also when I get back to the jungle in Pucallpa, also be able to bring in some guest speakers. So
that would be wonderful. That would be absolutely wonderful. Dominic, is there somewhere that we can reference people to go if they wanted to get in touch with you, or is that something you're still working on?
They could just contact me through Facebook or
Okay.
WhatsApp. Or,
do you want to share your Facebook details or anything like that?
They can contact me through, if anyone wants to drink ayahuasca in the center or wants to work with the shamans who I've been living with for the past 2.5 years, who wants to come to this center. The name of the center is called Moiniti. And there's a website. The website is moiniti.org. For anyone who wants to work with these shamans in San Francisco and Pucallpa, they're welcome to. They can find the website, and they can contact us through the website.
Okay, that's great. And yes, definitely, I would be honored and thrilled to have you back with maybe special guests in the actual jungle specifically, because Dominic, your story really, it really made an impression on me. There's lots of little tidbits even that I know that you spent time in a Buddhist monastery, I think, as well. I heard, and what did your aunt share with me? Oh, that you drank, was it frog poison or some kind of toad venom?
Yeah, it's called kambo. It's a medicine they use jungle and they call it the vaccine of the jungle, because this medicine it's so powerful for enhancing your immune system. It gives you a natural immunity to all kinds of diseases. It's really strengthens your immune system and helps to cure illnesses, like helps to cure the flu, helps to cure various bacterial viral infections. It's called kambo.
Wow. Well, all of these names that you've been giving me before we post anything, I will make sure to have in the description box below, just so that people can actually look this stuff up. But it sounds phenomenal. So that's just one of the stories that I heard amongst the others that you've shared today that I was like, wow. Wow. Are you planning now? The last thing I want to ask you, because I did hear that you're a very good writer. Have you been writing or journaling, or is that part of any of this? Will there be diaries, Dominic's diaries, or anything like that in the near future?
For a year or two, I haven't really been writing anything. Maybe in the future, but at the moment, for the past couple of years, I haven't been writing anything.
You said you have not?
No, I haven't been writing.
Well, maybe this is the universe's cue for you, Dominic, that you got to get that pen out and start writing again, because I hear you're a fabulous writer, and there are many students waiting.
Yeah, that's something I feel like I need to get writing. So I'm gonna, little by little, I'm gonna start
Step by step. Is there any final message you want to leave us with today? Anything at all?
Just all I can say is just go with the flow.
Go with the flow.
Let your intuition and let consciousness guide you where you need to go. Just go with the flow. Go with the flow of life and let consciousness lead you where you need to go. And everything that needs to unfold will unfold.
I like that. go with the flow. Everything that's going to have to unfold or needs to unfold will in due time, right? That's a good one. Oh, thank you, Dominic. I mean, honestly, there's just so much to cover, so hopefully there'll be many more, but it was a real joy and honor talking to you. Thank you for carving out this time in your day. I'm sure you've got lots of stuff to do. Are you heading back now, you said, to your destination, or are you staying, where you're at in Lima for a little bit longer?
Yeah, I'll be heading back to Pucallpa in a few days.
In a few days. Okay.
Just stay a few days longer because there's some things I need to prepare before I leave to bring back
To bring back.
Things I need to bring them back.
Well, that's all part of your compassion and your mission to improving the lives of others, which is very, very obvious. So it's really been a joy and an honor, Dominic. Thank you so much. Really, I look forward to speaking to you again.
Yeah, thanks for
Stay in
inviting
touch.
me.
I will send you a message just so we get all of those names right on all those medicinal plants. And maybe we'll even see you next month or something like that. Happy holidays.
Yeah, sounds good.
Yes.
All the best. And
thank you. Thank you. Be well. Thank you. Take care, Dominic. Thank you. Thank you for everyone tuning in to Mother Mary's Apothecary. That was our guest, Dominic Fagan, very special guest. Hope to get him on, as a regular, even with guests from the Amazon, and learn more about shamanism, plant medicine, spirituality, the matrix. Boy, what else did he talk about? It was incredible. If you have any questions, just write to info@MotherMarysApothecary.com. My name is Valerie, and I hope to see you again soon. Take care, be holy, healthy, and happy. Om Shanti, peace, compassion for all sentient beings. Thank you. Take care.